Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of your favorite podcast, the Mile High Sports Symposium. I'm your host, Nicholas Manning. You can find me on Twitter at @dr_nmanning. And my main man, who is riding shotgun with me, Ty. You can find my man Ty Waldron at TyFlyGuy on Twitter. Is it TyFlyGuy15?
Mm-hmm.
Bam! And also, go follow the podcast, the @Incomplete Podcast. It's @IN_COM_PLETE_2.
Perfect.
How are you, my man? Catch me up.
I'm doing pretty well. Just got done work. And this, I don't like talking about the weather a whole lot, but the fact that the weather is basically sweater weather, this is like the only Broncos gear I had on that was hanging up. So like, you know what? Going on Broncos podcast, Denver podcast. Let's just throw this on. Getting ready to substitute teach next week. And
Nice.
I actually will be in Colorado for Labor Day weekend.
Bam, slam and pow. So I'm excited to see you. I know I will make some time to get to see you live and in person. So welcome. Hopefully it's a lot of this weather. It's like 76 today, like a little breezy. It's like just great. Yesterday it was like 94. It doesn't know what it wants to do, but you know what? It could complain. But why? When you're living in this wonderful time that we are, the Broncos have announced, to no one's shock and awe, but still nonetheless wonderful, Bo Nix as QB1 heading into the 2024 season, the first time since John Elway in 1983, year of the Nick, that the Denver Broncos will be starting game one, week one, with a rookie quarterback. What were your thoughts? I know I shot you a quick message, but what were your thoughts when I came on, or when you caught it first? What was the first thing that popped in your head?
So I actually just got done work when the news popped up on my phone, and I was like, not surprising, especially given his last game. And I'm pretty sure we'll talk about that in a little bit, but he was just absolutely, in his two games against the Colts and the Packers, absolutely phenomenal. He was, the first maybe 3 plays for the Colts was a little shaky, but he definitely seems like he is a quarterback. He's a rookie quarterback, but at the same time, like, he has had that experience. He's had 5 years of college experience, and just the way he's been able to handle himself on the field, able to be that general on the field, to direct his team. And I think it was in these two games alone, he's driven the team towards points. I want to say 7 out of the 8 drives he's been in part of, which is absolutely phenomenal. Something we absolutely need. And not only is he getting points, he's getting touchdowns as well. And so I'm been very impressed. I knew after that game against the Packers, it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to be the starter. It was just a matter of not when it'll be announced, instead of like where, I guess, in the sense of what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
But man, first rookie quarterback since 1983 when John Elway was at the helm. That's some deep, deep history there, and I'm all here for it.
Yeah, we all knew it was coming. There wasn't anything that I think that you were going to be shocked about. That said, it's still pretty momentous. Right, teacher?
Yeah, momentous. I like that. Yep.
And because of the Broncos have been asking for, or Broncos country has been asking for our own homegrown quarterback for a long time, right? And I think with this last failure of the Russell Wilson experiment, I think we were all really done with the retread, right there.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll get to talk about holdout for Dak Prescott and like all of the things that were behind it. I think we were ready again for our own, and for Bo Nix, who let's face it, the guy was maligned a ton through the process. This isn't This wasn't some slam dunk prospect that couldn't miss. This wasn't John Elway in 1983, right? John Elway was and potentially could be the best quarterback prospect in the history of scouting. And Bo Nix isn't that. And we heard a lot about what he couldn't do. What Auburn was like. Why is he so old? Why, like all of the stuff about what, about why he wouldn't be successful. And then I think there was a lot of doubt on whether Sean Payton knew what he was doing. And, you saw coaching rankings where he's on like the bottom third, with with guys who have never had a winning record, right? I mean, like just a little bit of a big slap across the face. And Sean Payton has said he had as much. He had two middle fingers waiting for his doubters once this worked out. And we saw him progress, him as in Bo Nix, steadily, not only through camp, but the games, right? Things have translated. Yeah. We are still waiting for him to have a bad day. He didn't have a bad practice, and not everything was, was awe-dropping or jaw-dropping. But there wasn't you could point out who the rookie was on the field. There was never that day. And so the fact now we're still waiting for it. We're waiting for a bad drive. We're waiting for a bad drive. We haven't had a bad drive yet. Even one that didn't score points, still got first downs, right? And for an offense that's sputtered for the better part of 8 years, it's a big day. What it's going to mean, we'll see. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But I'm super excited. I think it is very much an opportunity for the Broncos to be in the limelight. You had brought up something before we came on about just the national attention, the fact that the Denver Broncos, who across several different betting sites have the lowest odds to win the Super Bowl. Yes. Yet, when Bo Nix got announced, they broke in on SportsCenter, right? It was a main topic. You had Diana Rossini out here for training camp with The Athletic. Her and Chase Daniel doing a big thing. Before that, Kay Adams is rolling through. Yep. And so the reason, it's not Audric Estime.
No, it's not.
It's not Devon Vele, who has been great also in camp.
It's not Jonah Ellis.
It's not Jonah Ellis. It's, the fact that the Denver Broncos might have not only found their starting quarterback in a rookie this year, but they did it in a way, right, that bucked the conventional thought and really did show that maybe, just maybe, even Sean Payton has undersold Sean Payton, which aren't a lot of people that think as highly of Sean Payton as Sean Payton. So I want people to make sure they hold that with a grain of salt. So give me your thoughts about just, is the national narrative turning? Are the lovable losers right now that are the Denver Broncos? Is the national media starting to maybe look at this team as, maybe they got something there?
It does seem that way. Although I will point out that there are some, and I'm going to call them TikTok analysts that are still saying that the Broncos are like, oh, they're going to be like the worst team. And I think I saw something on, oh gosh, I can't remember what the site was, but so as of even, this was before the Bo Nix news was brought up, that the Broncos were projected to still have the number 1 overall pick, tied with the Giants at 3-14, but there was some kind of like mess that happened that gave us the number 1 overall pick, which don't forget that I think we're one of 3 teams right now that have never had the number 1 pick. And in a sense, I do kind of want to keep it that way for right now. I think it has turned a little bit, especially because like I saw Kay Adams' schedule beforehand and Denver wasn't even on that schedule and she added on there. It's like, Kay Adams is like this amazing lady who just knows her stuff. And the fact that she's taking the time to go see a training camp with the Broncos, that stuff's going to raise some eyebrows a little bit like, maybe there is something going on there. And as far as the depth of the team, outside of like, the Broncos don't have a quarterback. They have the worst quarterback room in the league, and they have like bad wide receivers. They have bad running backs. I want to point out that I think why most are saying that is they just look at names and they don't see like a Patrick Mahomes or a Travis Kelce or a Max Crosby or a Justin Herbert, just to name players off of you don't see a Lamar Jackson on there and like, oh, I don't see those names.
Right.
So It's like, whatever. But Kelly has always taught me that, and actually I've learned this for so many years, that football is a team sport. It's not based upon what one player can do. While one player does help, it takes the combined effort of 22 players, the 53 players on that roster to get you to that big game, get you to that Super Bowl. And while we're not dropping names like on a Hollywood party, these names are still something to be keeping an eye on, especially with how well our rookies have looked during this training camp.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to toot my own horn just a little bit. Sean Payton's not the only one, just saying. I didn't think that this was a 5-win team out the jump. I thought it's a team that really won't get a lot of wagers on it because of the lack of name notoriety, for sure.
Right.
So is this, I think I heard Mark Schleyer say it, right? Like, this team isn't talentless, it's nameless, right? And so for me, I think that's why Sean Payton loves this team so much. There isn't a diva really in the locker room,
right?
And even Cortland Sutton, who's holding out, is really just some security. Like, I want to be here, I just want to know that you want me to be here, right? And so though there's a little bit more money that he can make, it was money essentially that was available, but now there's some realistic markers in there for him to be able to get it, and the money into next season that he can get. But Cortland Sutton's always been a team guy, right? He blocks, Tim Patrick blocks, right? Those are significant pieces. So there isn't a look at me guy. There isn't a guy that's going to be throwing it, like Caleb Williams is, and whipping around, throwing things. That said, I knew that Bo Nix was a really good athlete. He was the number one dual quarterback coming out of high school his year. Number one, like, in the country, and that is a pocket passer. The guy was never a statue. His issue in Auburn was that he was too good of an athlete and they didn't recruit around him. So he had to go be Johnny Manziel.
Wait, it's a bad thing that you're too good?
Serious. I mean, it was, hey, go clean up all of our messes. I mean, you look at Auburn. Auburn hasn't been a stable outfit for a while. They peaked there with Cam, rode that for a little bit, and then really it's been a up and down process for them in the middle of SEC country. And so now you get to an outfit that allows him to see the field and process quickly, get the ball out, let playmakers do their stuff, which really is what NFL quarterbacks are supposed to do.
Exactly.
You know your read process. You know how you read 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and then you get to the flat. And so the worry that he couldn't do that based on what he did at Oregon, I thought was short-sighted. Whether or not he's going to have a big time ceiling because his overall arm talent, that I don't know. I saw Tom Brady improve his arm talent year after year, where he was throwing the ball harder at 30 than he was at 25. So all that being said, I felt like he was able to come in and contribute earlier, which means they're going to get better quarterback play than they got last year out of a team that won 8 games. Mind you, I don't know that they're going to win 8 games, but I think that they're going to be a better team, and they're going to be more equipped to, I think, produce throughout the game, which then you're not relying on fourth quarter magic from your quarterback, right? Your defense doesn't have to stress every single possession to try and take a turnover,
right? Because
you might be able to get a few first downs, stay on schedule, things like that. So I think that I don't know the national media is coming around because I think most of them or a lot of them don't like Sean Payton. I think a lot of them want to be right about Bo Nix. And I think egos are everywhere. I think it's in the national stuff. So I think some people who are kind of Sean friendly are probably super interested in, the whole story, which has been super fun to hear how it played out, right? With the workout and what's in the backpack. And he's all about football. And we knew 3 hours into our first meeting that he was our guy, all that good stuff to today. But I think other NFL teams are noticing. I absolutely think that other NFL teams being able to see how creative Sean Payton can be with a guy that can not only throw it deep, but can run QB power. Remember, Taysom Hill couldn't throw the ball. He can run QB power, right? So he's been able to run these things, but not with the same guy.
Right.
So I think that the league is catching up. And I think this team's going to be a pretty strong out once the season starts. We'll get to where we'll get to here in a little bit. But with that, does it raise your expectations? Does it raise with seeing how Bo has performed over the first 2 weeks of preseason, understanding that it's preseason? That said, does this 2 weeks change your perspective from what you were going into training camp thinking that this team would be?
So I'll tell you what, first going in, and even after the Russell Wilson news where he got cut, and if you've seen what I just now saw what he was doing in Pittsburgh, maybe that was probably the better choice. Just cutting ties with Russell Wilson. When everything started, I did project that the Broncos would probably be picking in the top 3 in 2025, without a doubt. So the draft was a really big way of me seeing what's Sean Payton's plan. And the fact that quarterback after quarterback after quarterback was I still am a little flustered that the Atlanta Falcons ended up picking up Michael Penix, because there was absolutely no reason for them to do it, because they had just gotten Kirk Cousins, and it just completely threw off the board. And so when Minnesota got JJ McCarthy, it was right there. And then I'm like, yeah, we're probably going to get Bo Nix, because you have the Raiders right there, and you don't want the Raiders to be good as a Broncos fan. And the fact that the Broncos don't pick again until I think it was the 3rd round, you're like, this is not going to be good. So I think Sean Payton went with even before I found out about the whole reading the playbook and be able to doing things left and right almost flawlessly. I was like, okay, Bo Nix, I can understand why we got him, because it's a quarterback, and we need a quarterback because you have Stidham, and then you had Wilson that just got traded for a couple days before then. So from what I'm seeing in training camp, I projected maybe 4 wins, 5 wins best. I would say after what I've seen with Bo Nix, especially with what I've seen from the other players, cautiously optimistically going to bump that up maybe by a win or 2.
So are you high side being and then low side being? So what do you think? Hey, this is the max. I think that this is the ceiling. I think this is the floor. What's your ranking?
I found it funny. Now I'm thinking about ceiling, that Mike Kliss had Denver at 11-6. I'm like, okay, let's pump the brakes there a little bit. I don't think 11-6 is possible, because if you look at 11-6, that's probably a top wild card. And granted, maybe if the Chiefs don't do as well as they do, that's probably a division right there. It's let's pump it a little bit. So I would say right now the ceiling, I think the ceiling right now would be a winning season. I will probably say right now 9-8, give or take. I think I initially had them maybe at 6-11, so that's 3 extra wins somewhere.
Okay.
Which I will break that down next week on my podcast. And then my floor, I would say the floor would probably be that 5-6. That's where my floor was the 5-6. Well, actually, no, that's where my middle was, 5-6. Yeah. And so the floor was going to be even lower. So Right now it got raised up. So now my floor is where my average was going to be before training camp had started. So floor 5 wins, ceiling 9 wins, I'll take it.
Okay. I will take it too. All right, folks. If you got time in the chat, throw us what you think the Denver Broncos will be this season. And if it's improved based on Bo Nix' wonderful play, everyone knows sometimes you just need a Nix in your life. Just saying. I think my low side was always 6. I think to lose, when they went 5-12 2 years ago, that was a catastrophically bad season. Yeah. And they still won 5 games. You have competent coaching. Sean Payton has never won less than 7.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't think that can happen again. I think when you get better quarterback play, I think you're going to stay in that range. I do think high side now is 10. I think before, I thought high side would be 8. They're really probably going to be a team that struggles out of the gate, probably plays better towards the end of the season. The natural progression of a team you look excited for in next year. I do not think that he's going to have a CJ Stroud year. I'm going to say that really clearly.
Yeah.
What CJ Stroud did last year was just one, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
In any aspect. Second, really it was over the last 13 games, maybe 12 games. He struggled out of the gate in the preseason, was not very good. And so, that team was also getting beat up quite a bit by the national media. Everyone thought they were going to be terrible again. And mind you, they had the 2nd and 3rd pick due to a trade up and nailed it out of the park. Yeah, you have the offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. You're sitting at 10-7. And I do not think that the Broncos can win the division, because I think Kansas City is a better team than they were last year. Last year, I think, was the year to be able to do it. I think that this team now will be more equipped to score points against the Chiefs. That you don't have to just win a slugfest. And I'm not saying a shootout, but I'm saying, could this team put up 24? Yeah. I think now they can put up 24. Last year's team put up 22 a game. So can they put up 24 a game, which is a big jump in 2 points a game is significant, actually, when you take a look at it. And so I think it's a team that also wouldn't lose to the Raiders twice. If you have competent quarterback play from first snap to whistle, you're not losing those games. I still think, especially because Justin Herbert's going through it right now, that the Chargers will be good again. It won't be this year. And I think Harbaugh's probably fine with that, stock up some more picks early on, and then, some bad contracts off the books next year. And, the Chargers are probably back, which would be cool, but not cool. So I think it's a team now that you can win 10. You look at, that Pittsburgh game that you're looking at, that before was like, now you have the better quarterback, and whoever is going to be playing that game, like, what in the world? And some other teams I think have looked pretty rusty. And so who knows how it'll go. No one would have thought that the Broncos would have beat the Chiefs and the Bills last year in back-to-back games. Right. So it really just kind of depends on who and when, any given Sunday, all that good stuff. But definitely a team that I think, is on the up. I know I looked at Bleacher Report. Bo Nix is like the top-ranked rookie in their report cards, all the stuff.
Yep.
So I think there is some understanding that what he's doing isn't just you're beating up on second and third teamers. There's a throw where he throws a dig over the top against the Packers on Sunday's game, where he throws the ball before the break, but is staring the safety down before coming over to that look. You can't defend that. I don't care if it's Ed Reed. I don't care if it's, they might make it closer, put a better hit on the receiver, but he put the ball in the receiver's chest. It's a 20-yard gain. That throw is unstoppable in that coverage, right? So that coverage got called. Here's the play that got set up. The way that he's able to function within that play, it doesn't matter if it's a first teamer, second teamer, guy in the street, Hall of Famer. And if he can continue to do that, I think he's going to be able to play like that against first and second teamers. And I don't, that he'll struggle there. I do think he has to slow down a little bit, which I think he'll get as the speed of the game goes. I think he's actually reading the game faster than than his teammates are. That he's beating the coverages faster than they're ready for the ball. And I think, one, that's a really great sign because you can always slow down, right, as you get used to the tempo of being in a pocket.
Right.
It's way better than trying to get someone to process it faster.
Okay.
There's a ton of really good quarterbacks that couldn't pick it up fast enough. So super excited where the Broncos are at. It's Bo time here in Broncos country. We couldn't be more excited. Again, got to love yourself some Knicks.
I will throw this out here real quick, though. I was just thinking about this, about the whole ceiling and floor thing. I think these first 4 games of the season are going to be really critical because they're not going to have a whole lot of film on Bo Nix. And so that is a way for Sean Payton to scheme and beat teams like the Seattle Seahawks, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even the New York Jets. The fact if he could win, go 3-1, at least 3-1 in those first 4 games, I think a lot of national media, one, will start paying more attention, and two, I think teams are going to start scheming more toward them because I think there's going to be a lot more film on Bo Nix come October, and I think that's where we're going to see the strengths and weaknesses of Bo Nix.
And here's where I think that's phenomenal. I think that if they go 3-1 out the gate, I think they'll be writing exposés on Sean Payton and Bo Nix just because of all of that. That's a really tough stretch. I think if they go 2-2, to be honest with you, and he looks like he's holding his own, I think the Broncos will get some just due. I think that Sean Payton is excited. One, because let's look at Bo Nix and what we saw over the last couple weeks.
Yes.
So one, he has plus arm talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy has a good arm. If you go watch, right, it's not elite. He isn't Josh Allen, but not many guys are, right? And so I made this comp for a while at least, where I think that he's Joe Burrow.
Okay.
But a better athlete. I think Joe right now has shown to be more clutch and processing probably more, more NFL concepts at this stage of their careers with what he did in LSU. Mind you, though, he did have Nathan Jefferson and probably the most talented offense in the history of
NFL caliber college players playing with him.
Those are top. Those are the best in the league, right? If you brought that offense just on an NFL team, like they're torching people. That's a fantasy football team. Anyway, mind you, but Joe Burrow, one, has 9-inch hands, which are on the relatively small side, average arm strength, his anticipation, his ability to throw from a dirty pocket. You heard Sean Payton talk about that about Bo Nix, and to be able to deliver the ball without having your base underneath you all of the time, and being able to do so when you're about to get a helmet in the teeth.
All right.
And so far, Bo Nix hasn't really got hit yet, but 10.25-inch hands, like the dude's got paws. So he doesn't fumble, didn't really fumble in college, didn't really fumble in Auburn when he's running QB power and those likes against Alabama. And so I think for a guy like that, now you look at what Sean Payton, to be honest, is able to do. Drew Brees had a very high ceiling when it came to his intellectual understanding of where to put the ball. He had physical limitations that Bo Nix doesn't have. Drew Brees was an okay athlete, right? Was a shorter quarterback. Bo Nix is all of 6'2". That dude he's put together, right? He's going to be able to withstand, I think, in this league. And he's a plus athlete. You saw it the last 2 games. He's going to pick up 2 to 3 first downs every game with his feet, just like Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is like a 4'7", 4'8" guy. He runs super weird. I don't know why they don't fix that. Anyway, but he gets 2 to 3 first downs a game, which are backbreakers, right? You defend guys, it's 3rd and 9. You send the house. He scampers for 12 yards, and you're gutted because he's, that's all he needed. He needed one extra one of those. And now you have a guy like that, a guy that you can scheme on boots and rolls and QB powers, throwbacks, draws, things that you can intentionally use his legs for that you didn't have the option to do before. I think Sean Payton is excited for when defenses try to counter because I bet he's been dreaming for a while about the offense that he wants to create in the stages of it. I bet he's just in, he's in coach's dreamland. I heard someone bring it up about this is the first time now since Drew Brees really that Sean Payton's going to get to play quarterback from the sideline, right? Because he's going to know where Bo's going to throw the ball. He had no idea what Russ was doing. Russ didn't know what Russ was doing. Mind you, I love Russ. I think Russ is a good human being. I think he did his best here. I do not think that he half-assed it whatsoever. I think it was a bad marriage. Half of that was his fault, half it wasn't. That said, his game is not the traditional process. Get the ball out quick, use the middle of the field, etc. And that's what Sean Payton wants to do. And now you've seen it work where a 4-yard over the center throw right to your tight end, that's a run play. Right? Yep. That's an extension of the run. That's an easy throw. You're ahead of the chains, that kind of stuff. We didn't have that before, and now we will. So, super excited about that. I think that will help pushing this season forward. With that being said, take Bo Nix out of it. Bo Nix will look great. All of us are Bo fans. Bo knows we're all there. Give me one guy over the last 2 weeks of the preseason that has really surprised you. Okay. And then give me one guy that has really disappointed you. So it doesn't matter offense, defense, either or. So floor is yours.
Perfect. All right. So I will say, because I only have one defensive player, I'll start with that one. My surprise, it's got to be Jonah Ellis.
My man.
He's just been to the ball. He's just been everywhere on that field. And his game has elevated so much for what was he, a 3rd round pick? It's just impressive on what he's been able to do. Just all over the field. And the fact that he's developing a little bit quicker than what maybe Sean Payton anticipated, maybe what Vance Joseph anticipated. It's definitely a beautiful sight, because we definitely need, I don't think we've had a solid pass rusher really since Von Miller. And I don't see Von Miller inside Jonah Ellis right now.
Sure.
But he does have that potential to be a really good, possibly, hot take here, Pro Bowl edge rusher for this Denver Broncos team. And it's something
Pro Bowl in his career, or you think this year could be a Pro Bowl season?
I would say Pro Bowl in his career.
Okay. You know what?
I'm not going that bold
yet. This year.
Okay.
Hot take.
There's a hotter take than mine. But yeah, I would have to say that he definitely has the qualities and the ability to have a good 10, 12, and if we're talking crazy, maybe 15-year career. This guy is amazing. And I hope that
his dad did, right? So if anyone knows Luther Ellis, really good defensive lineman for a long time. He knows, right? Family's in the game, all that stuff. I love that pick. He was one of my favorite draft picks, period. I think getting him in the 3rd round had most to do with his injury. He was a kind of a one-hit wonder in sense of broke out, but there was a progression in his pressures. And I didn't understand why people were like, he has to get bigger to handle the run. He's all of 6'3", 250, 255.
Right.
The guys, if you see his arms, the guy is not little. So it wasn't like Nick Benito, who needed my man needed to do squats, and you knew it. Jonah Ellis looks the part and has shown it, right? His ability to hold the edge, I think, will need work. I think anytime you're getting pummeled by NFL tackles, you can't replicate that in most college locker rooms. So I love that one. I think he's going to be a guy that's, I hate to say it, right? Because Baron Browning and Jonathan Cooper essentially are fighting over one contract, in my opinion. Sad, right? They're college boys, drafted the same draft class, same team, same position, essentially. And I think his ability to play will really determine how they handle that position for the other guys, whether or not they keep either of them. Maybe they save all of that money because they feel really good about Benito and Ellis. And what they can be, but I love that one because I think that pick was a slam dunk. Right. I think the worry about who he was going to be, his moves translated. If anyone watched how he got to the pass rusher, and then his motor was better than I even thought. And I think
Oh, yeah.
you're able to see that in the first 2 games. So nice. I like that one. Who has disappointed you?
I'm not gonna say it disappointed me based on performance. It's mostly because we haven't really seen him a whole lot, and I have to say it's Troy Franklin. We haven't really gotten to see, as I mentioned, we haven't seen him a whole lot, and it makes me wonder, like, what is Sean Payton's plan with him? And from what I'm hearing a lot is that he's possibly going to redshirt this year, be gamed. Like, the thought is that he could potentially make the roster, but would be part of that 7-man game day inactive unless injury pops up. And so it kind of makes you, like, I would personally go to Sean Payton if I were to give him one question and ask, what is your plan for Troy Franklin? Because it seems like there was a 2nd-round grade on him, and Denver traded up for him. So you have to have some kind of plan for him. But the fact that we haven't seen him a whole lot kind of raises, like, not a red flag per se, but it kind of like puts a light up, like, like, wonder what his plan is for him. And I'm not going to say it's disappointment because he has underperformed. It's a disappointment because we haven't really seen him a whole lot.
Sure. Well, we haven't seen him a lot because he's underperformed. Being at practice, you can hear him get cussed out from the hill.
Oh, okay.
One, that is how the receivers coaches. So it's not like, it's not like Dorothy is over there and she's like all super sweet with their puppy. I'm like, oh, and then all of a sudden it's just cussing out some guy. Troy Franklin is, I think, the youngest player on the roster.
Yes.
It's him or Estime. It's one or the other, right? Like, they're babies. I think maybe now they can buy a beer, but I think at draft time, both of them weren't 21 yet. So mind you, he's played a lot of college football. In Oregon system, they put guys in positions to do well. He wasn't a guy they were asking to make tough catches over the middle. So the nuances of the game for Troy weren't there.
Right.
Mind you, to his credit, he has worked hard. I haven't seen or heard that he's a locker room cancer, that he's struggling with being coached. He's just getting coached hard right now.
Right.
And so I think he's going to get Marvin Minsed on the receiver. Like, they got guys that are better right now, that are more equipped to the game, that can run more routes more consistently. Right. And so I think it's a guy that just both Cortland, and Tim Patrick won't be here next year, potentially, probably.
Oh,
maybe Josh Reynolds won't. I mean, his contract doesn't really guarantee that he's going to be on this roster, but they're here now. And those are 3 NFL guys with big bodies, bigger frames than him, that can do what he can't yet. So if there's a time to learn, it's now. And I think he'll be a guy. And I said this from jump. I think he's a guy that we'll see more as the season goes on, as they're able to really implement him into the offense, have some packages for him, that kind of stuff. But I agree, it's been disappointing just because how many guys get drafted with their college quarterback?
Not many.
Right? Not many. And watching Bo flourish, but Troy struggling, it's a little like, what? Like, isn't Bo like, are you not sitting with Bo at the dinner table? Like, Bo just helping you along?
And I think it's a good thing that they both got drafted in this draft because it allowed them, like, to grow together, and, like, you'll get to see exactly, like, maybe in 2 to 3 years why the Nix to Franklin connection was so special in Oregon.
Right. And I think they will. Yep. So, my man was born 2003. Dear goodness gracious.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
So I think that he's been a concern for sure. For my positive, and to be honest, part of this might be head in the sand a little bit, but Luke Wattenberg, I'm going to go really off of the cuff. And a lot of this is he isn't an eyesore. So as an offensive lineman, usually it's either you're pancaking dudes, which doesn't really happen that much. Like, Quentin Nelson or Quinn Miners, like, just road grading people. One, doesn't happen every week. It doesn't happen in practice, right? Like, you're not really trying to kill the guy across from you all of the time.
Right.
Or the time that they notice you is when you're standing there and your guy just got to the quarterback, right? So it's really hard to know whether or not you're doing your job. And in the game so far, he has been by far the best option at center. Alex Forsyth has been okay, but he's been noticeably bad on several occasions. And Luke Wattenberg hasn't. And this was a guy athletically, his RAS score was super high, warranted a 5th grade pick, started a ton of games at Washington, reputable program, smart by all accounts, has experience playing all 5 positions or at least guard, center, tackle. So it's not a shock. It was the fact that he really struggled the last 2 years to be a viable NFL player. And I think really that was, you got the coaching he did his first year, which from all accounts was the worst offensive line coaching that anyone's ever seen. Was it Butch Berry? Yeah, Butch Berry.
Yeah,
it was
Butch Berry.
Absolutely awful. He'd leave notes in guys' locker rooms about like, you suck, get better, essentially. No, and when they're watching films, it's not technique driven. It's just, you suck, like you got to get better. And again, how they won 5 games that year with coaching that fantastic, I don't know. Then last year you get Streif in there, who was a lunch pail player, turned into a really solid 10-year vet with average in the NFL terms, physical skill set, and knows what it looks like. So you saw, I think, the progression of that offensive line now into this year. If they really like Luke Wattenberg, where they didn't draft competition, they got Gargiulo, but that I think was just a swing. It's a practice squad developmental guy, 7th round, late 7th round guy. You see what you got. They didn't bring in a vet.
Nope.
At a position, I think you can get a starter relatively cheap. And I think he's shown up. So knock again on they're smarter than we are. So far, so good. If that is a position that they can knock out for the next couple of years at that cost, kudos again. Nice job. A player that I think, or I haven't been as excited about or hasn't popped as much, Jonas Griffith, I thought was really ready to have a really good, strong camp. Physically, him and Alex Singleton, that's a really athletic linebacker duo.
Right.
Josie was a guy that won intellectually, but was very limited physically. Jonas Griffith isn't limited physically at all. The guy looks like Tarzan, runs like Tarzan. And mind you, coming back from injury, all that stuff, getting the rust off, but hasn't really graded out as high as a guy that started, a couple years ago. If you remember, before he got hurt in 2022 against San Francisco, he was an absolute monster against the 49ers, just wrecking shop all over the place. And he looks pretty far from that guy. And Cody Barton hasn't looked phenomenal, and he's played either. So it leaves you wanting a little bit about that position. You hope maybe Drew Sanders comes back off the PUP around late October, early November, and can give that position a little bit of a push, or LaVille Bailey can continue to push. But that inside linebacker, the other inside linebacker, has been one that I haven't been impressed with. I wouldn't be shocked if the Broncos cut to 52 and then pick up a guy after all the cuts are made, and especially at the inside linebacker spot. It just really hasn't been that great.
So you read my mind, because that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. Again, it's guys that you can get late. Pittsburgh did it. I think end of the year last year, they got Zach Cunningham and whoever, the Eagles did the same. So there's that. I'm going to let you kick off one more positive. Give me one more guy that's really been positive for you before we get on to the next and final part of our pod today.
I would say positive. I'm going to probably butcher his first name, so I'll say his last name. Bailey, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, Devon Bailey.
Yeah. Devon Bailey. There we go. That's what I thought. Okay. So Devon Bailey, 7th round pick.
Yeah.
When I saw that we had drafted him,
older than you.
Yeah, I want to say he's probably old. Okay, he's not that older than I am, but you couldn't tell the difference. But anyways, when he was drafted in the 7th round, I'm like, okay, we have Sutton, Mims, Patrick coming back. We just drafted Troy Franklin. Like, why are we drafting another wide receiver? Which I can understand, it's a depth thing. Okay, all right. That was one of the picks I wasn't 100% sold on, but seeing him in training camp, I've seen his clips, and then seeing him in preseason game, the guy can ball, and he's definitely someone that could spell a Cortland Sutton or a Tim Patrick if they need a break. And so if he can do that and is able to give Sutton or Patrick a rest, I think that's going to go a long way. One thing that I stress big time on my podcast is depth. If you have depth, you have a really good shot at winning. We saw the depth that was tested for the Broncos when they won the Super Bowl with players like Keo, Shaq Barrett, even at one point, which is crazy to think about Shaq Barrett being a depth piece because of where he ended up as far as his career was, which I will say, hopefully you're doing well in retirement, Shaq Barrett. But if Vale can definitely pick up some of the snap counts that Sutton and or Patrick are unable to, I think it's going to go a long way in not only him developing, but Bo Nix developing as well.
I like it. Yeah, who would have thunk? It was a guy that I think essentially you were going to get, Tim Patrick, or same number, right? Same kind of physical capabilities, all that good stuff. Whereas, it really looks like Tim out there. He's been great. Mind you, I'm still a little hesitant on, a lot of his really good plays have been in kind of in like red zone periods, and mind you, they're practicing. If I say mind you again, they're practicing real situations. It's just not in the flow of a game,
right?
And so I don't know if that's transferable. If it's not, right, they know what's coming. Yeah. He's still able to get up. He's like 6 inches taller than Jaquan McMillan, et cetera. But that said, the fact that there is this positive of momentum from a 7th round pick that was really a for sure dart throw, that you hit, right? I mean, you if they have a 4 to 5 year career as a 7th year draft pick, you nailed it. Mm-hmm. Right? This isn't you're not trying to find 10-year starters in 7th round. You're trying to find contributors that stay in the league for a second contract.
Yeah.
And I think they did. And so, yep, I like that one. Knock it out. My other positive, I actually have a lot. And I think that goes to show that this training camp has been a much better feel. I think you can see the progress of this team much better than last year. And I don't know if that's addition by subtraction. I don't know that it's not. That said, for all of the crap this man got, and deservedly so, to be honest, Greg Dulcich hasn't missed a practice. Nice. Hasn't missed a preseason game. The guy's gotten hit in games, popped back up. Has really, I wouldn't say he's become a good blocker, but has shown again a willingness to compete as a blocker, which, to be honest, if you're willing to do that, that's Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp got better as a blocker, but in the end, he was willing to do it because he understood to be an all-around Pro Bowl player, you can't leave the field. And so Dulcich has answered the bell. He took the criticism, revamped his training style to really work with the team. So accepted, like, hey, whatever I'm doing is not working. I want to be an NFL player. I want to be on the field with my guys. Whatever you're going to have me do, I'm going to do. And has done it, and it's working. Mind you, we don't know how it's going to work into the season. But the fact now that he isn't a topic about whether or not he's on the field, right? We joked about it. Is he Chris Bryant? Is he going to be able to come to come to work on back-to-back days? Like, who knows? And now it's not even a subject. We kind of moved on. Yep, Dulcich. Yep, he's shoe-in for the roster, right? I think all of us were like, I don't know if he makes the roster before the season. Right. I don't know if I want him to. He's a one-trick pony who's hurt all the time. Right. So tremendous work by him. Kudos to him in embracing the humility as a world-class athlete to say whatever I'm doing isn't working, and I'll do whatever it takes to really be a part of the team. Nothing's been promised to him, right? He isn't a former All-Pro that's trying to work his way back. It's not Travis Kelce. This is a guy who has had a few good game stretches, and that's it. Hasn't had a good season, hasn't had all that good stuff. So shout out to him. I think really wrapping up that whole tight end room, I thought that was the worst position group in the NFL before the season. The fact that Lucas Kroll looks like he's a player, if Adam Troutman is your floor, that's a guy that is a all-around tight end. You want him on your roster, he's going to find a job in 10 seconds. Oh, okay. He's going to find out pretty quick on the free agent market because there isn't anything he can't do. And there are some things he can do pretty well. So that room has impressed. I think it's much better than I thought. And again, name value, right, versus talent, two different things. Those don't have to equal each other. So I think you hit that for sure. Now over the last part of the last segment, last talking point, what I want to be able to do is I'm going to give you either or, okay?
Okay.
We're going to talk a little bit about the roster. Sean Payton has said we essentially got like 60 to 65 guys in our mind for the last 53, right? So they're really picking between 7 guys. Usually it's going to be not only juice versus squeeze, it's going to be money. It's going to be, can they play special teams, all that good stuff. Right. But 60 to 65 guys, they feel really strong about and feel like, a few of those guys can play somewhere else right away, which is always a good place. You want your team to be so full that you cut contributors, not you got to try like you get up here and you still need contributors, which has been, a while ago, a few seasons in John Elway's tenure, they were cleaning up on the waiver wire because they needed those guys to come in and contribute because they didn't have 53 guys. They had 48. And so kudos to that. But the CB2 position is still out there. Just kind of a brief answer why. So Riley Moss and Damari Mathis kind of going at it. Chris Abrams-Drain has put his name in the hat with his strong play over the first 2 weeks and in camp. If it's you, week 1, who's the starter? Brief why.
Oh my gosh, that's actually pretty tough.
Yeah, it is. That's what I do.
I would say, look at. Okay, so that's why I had on my cornerback roster list. I would give it to Riley Moss. I think he's kind of shown that he's can take that next step. My only concern with him is that you have Patrick Surtain on one side, so definitely not going that way. If he becomes cornerback 2, he's going to be tested quite a bit. So it's going to be like, maybe not so far as growing pains, but it's like, okay, like let's see what Riley Moss can really do when he is given the keys to the Ferrari and can start.
I dig it. I think it should be Riley Moss. I think he's been more consistent. There were a couple plays where I think he was in okay position, but a good throw beats him for some good plays. But to be honest, that's most cornerbacks every play, right? A good throw beats good coverage every single time. It's like good pitching beats good hitting every single time. Riley Moss is an athlete, bro. His RAS score 9.66, 4.45, 40-yard dash, 2.56 in the 20-yard, and 1.49 in the 10-yard. That put him in the 96th percentile for 10-yard splits. So super fast, above 6 foot, 200 pounds, with a 39-inch vertical and a 10-foot broad jump. So great athlete. 3-cone drill really high. In the 98th percentile. So guy gets in and out of breaks, gets coached really well. Iowa produces, good players. They're smart. They can't find a quarterback to save their life, but they produce offensive linemen, defensive linemen, running backs, DBs, and running backs and tight ends for sure. So the fact that, he has okay length, has good size. He's pretty stout. A guy committed to being able to make some plays on the run, and has some experience being a returner. So it shows his athleticism and creativity if he gets the ball in his hands. So I think it'll be Riley. Also adding on to the other guys, I think will play this year. Okay. I think that the Broncos maybe have stumbled into some depth at that position, which I did not think was there to begin with. So nice job again to the Broncos managing their roster and it not being us. So my next question, okay, as we look at, I think we've already solved it. Do you think just Luke Wattenberg center? Yeah.
What did I put down? Let me see.
Yes, I'm just telling you.
Yeah, I did put him down in center. Yep.
Telling you this. Okay. Cody Barton or Jonas Griffith? Who's starting inside linebacker week 1?
I'm gonna go Cody Barton. I think it's just his experience is gonna be the reason why he gets it.
Yeah. I think Jonas does.
Okay.
Because of the upside, I think Cody can come in. He's played kind of more of that than Jonas has. I think Jonas, again, offers you something the other guys don't. I mean, he's 6'4", all of like 260. I think Seattle is going to want to run the ball quite a bit more. And same with Pittsburgh. I think a guy like that.
Yeah.
You're not really asking him to come in and trail and run with tight ends. And so I think he'll start. I think Cody Barton, I think they'll make that kind of a three-way group and trying to find a way to cover tight ends, which in this league, to be honest, is just damn near impossible. But I think, to be honest with you, there aren't other positions that are really out there, right? So a CB2, I think we know. Jaquan's the nickel. Brandon Jones, if he plays again, is the safety. Really liked what I saw from Devon Key and training camp darling. So Keandron Smith, who has had interceptions the first 2 weeks, number 43, 24-year-old free agent. I think he was free agent, undrafted free agent last season, but played 4 years at Ole Miss, started a whole bunch of games in the SEC at Ole Miss, grad transferred to Kentucky, who had a really, really good defense last year over the last few years, and started there. So, kind of the Bo Nix of defense, 6'2", 210. So a guy that fits the bill physically and has a knack for the ball. So he's a guy that, in my opinion, has, if he's not on the roster, it's because you feel really good about sneaking him onto the practice squad. But he's the guy I think has deserved to, and I wouldn't mind him getting some looks early as a deep safety or a robber underneath. I think he's a guy that's played really well. But maybe give me your take on whether or not this guy makes the roster. And I'll give you either or. Okay. So Inwami Uwazurike, so Inky, coming back off the suspension. Again, a guy that you can't duplicate his size. He is all of 6'5", 6'6", 320, super duper go-go gadget type arms. And then Matt Henningsen, who's been a solid contributor, nothing flashy, but nothing bad. Strong, physically gifted player, but smaller for sure, 6'3", 290. If you had to sign one today, right? We're making cuts today. It's one of those guys. Defensive line coach Ty Walden. Who do you pick?
I have to go with it was the second name, Hemmingsworth. Henningsworth. And I'm going to give my reason why. It's actually, I think I want to see more, because I'm actually on my final roster. I didn't have either one of them making it. Uwazurike, because of course he's been suspended for a year. Right. He's going to need some time to get back at it. And the other one hasn't really impressed me a whole lot. So I think this final preseason game will probably determine which one could potentially, we could sneak on the practice squad, or if they excel really well, or if Uwazurike has really done his homework while he's been suspended and has done really well. I could see him being that 53rd player making that roster. So if I had to pick one, I would probably go with Hemmingsway. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. Hennington.
No,
Hennington. Henningsen. So I would probably go with him for right now. But if Uwazurike impresses in this final preseason game, flop those two.
Yep. Here's the part that's interesting, right? So high floor in Henningsen, high ceiling in Uwazurike.
Yes.
I think you go high ceiling as your sixth because you have Malcolm Roach, Angelo Blackson as your other rotation defensive lineman. Those are NFL vets. You're going to get. You don't really know from those guys. Matt Henningsen is a good player. I think he's replaceable. His WAR is replaceable for sure. Because I think Elijah Garcia has more upside than Matt Henningsen. Jordan Jackson, who defensive end, Arizona State, looks the part. If you see that guy on a football field, you're like, that guy's a DM. He looks it. And so I actually think I wouldn't be surprised if neither make it. I think Elijah Garcia last year really flashed, and Jordan Jackson, I think the last spot was between those two guys. So I think if I were them, I'd probably have those guys, more flash, less risk. But I think either way that they go for it, I think you go with your sixth defensive lineman as if we hit on this, this is a guy that could get us 4 or 5 sacks a season from the interior, which is is stellar. But I think they're only going to keep 6. So I think it's going to be a tight squeeze there. So nice job. Last question before we kind of get ready to wrap up today. If Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, Josh Reynolds are your 3 receivers to start, who, I mean, mind you, like always, it's always like, skill set and what player are we calling? We're just for funsies. Yeah. Who's your 4th receiver? Who's the guy that if you're a wide receiver coach, you're like, hey, this guy is the 4th off the bench. So Marvin Mims, Vele, Little Jordan Humphrey, Brandon Johnson, Jalen Virgil, etc. Who's your number 4?
This is going to be pretty bold. And I still have a lot of faith in him. It might be this can give it away. It might be the Sooner in me, but I still have faith in Marvin Mims. I think he has that ability to be that number 4 guy. He could be that speed guy that could spell Josh Reynolds if he's in the slot. And it's like, okay, like let's go downfield. Just go downfield. Mims, I just want you to run, look back and see if the ball comes your way and you catch it.
He's essentially Forrest Gump.
Yeah, and it wouldn't make sense because, like, if you're only going to have Mims as your kick returner, like, you got to put him on the field at some point. And I think he was grossly underused last year, and that could be because of, like, scheme fit and things like that. So I think having him as that 4th wide receiver, having that maybe that change of pace, that speed guy, like your Jaleel McLaughlin of wide receivers, I think would be beneficial for this offense because you have 2 guys that can catch it. Josh Reynolds, who is pretty good catching the middle field, but you don't have a guy that can really to me, Marvin Mims could be to the Broncos offense to what a lot of people think Xavier Worthy can be for the Chiefs.
I get you.
And I think that will really help that Broncos offense go a little bit higher.
I agree. I think he needs to be. I think he moved up 2nd round to get him last year. He is the top off the defense guy. He is also your reverse guy, right? Your trick play guy. So I think if the Broncos are going to be good, he needs to be much more of the 3 or the 2 by season's end for sure.
Yes.
But I agree with you. I think that there's that. That's all that we got today, folks. Thank you for coming along this journey with us. Ty, any lasting comments, statements, pumps for the podcast that you want to give before we out?
All right, so you can find me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at TieFlyGuy15. Like was mentioned, Twitter. Yeah, it's always Twitter. It's always Twitter, but everyone gives me that, gives me a gripe. And then you can find my podcast. We're actually going to record tonight, and it should be up tomorrow morning. You can find our podcast at in_com_pleat_2, because like Kelly says, there are 2 of us, and also on Instagram there, and. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We usually have a podcast out every week. We're recording Wednesdays now, so we usually will try to have it out on Thursdays. Thursday morning.
Go subscribe.
Yeah, go like and
download. My man Ty loves it, speaks it, lives it. I am honored by you taking the time. I've really appreciated your friendship. Excited to see you next week. Thanks for coming on board. Broncos country, Nuggets nation, Avs community, and we appreciate your time. If you need a prescription, gotta holler at your boy. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.